Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Serena Loon and I'm super excited to tell you about this crazy PC I built this summer. So it's September now. Happy fall. I don't know about you, but I'm actually really excited for the summer to be over. Personally, it's been a little bit of a rough summer for me. But as I told you guys in my last video, I've been having a really good project summer. On this channel, you know, I talk a lot about my 3DSs, and other than handhelds, the main way that I love to play games is on PC. But personally for me, for the longest time, I was gaming on a laptop. I know, you're probably wondering, why on earth would you get a gaming laptop? Like, don't you know those are kind of bad? Yeah, I did know that. Like, many people warned me. Whenever I decided that I wanted to build a PC, I knew I wanted it to be something very me. I love modern computers, but a lot of my most cherished gaming memories took place on a giant box CRT monitor with the tower on the floor. I always used to scroll Pinterest, dreaming of what my desktop setup would look like. When that time came, I always imagined that my PC setup would be all white and pink and silver and probably planty. RGB internals don't speak to me the same way that seeing a repurposed case from the early 2000s with modern internals does. I'm not brave enough to take on the product of a true sleeper build at this point, but I did find the perfect alternative for myself. The only retro-styled modern PC case on the market right now, the Silverstone FLP-01. It has the look of a retro PC case, but it easily suits modern components. It even has a 5¼ bay, perfect for installing an internal disk drive. This is the part that honestly sold me the most. The one red flag I noticed was that the size constraints for this case were way smaller than some of the other cases I had seen. As I started looking into this case further, I started to realize that 1, it was not going to be an easy case for a first-time builder, and 2, I was going to have to center my entire build around this case if I wanted to use it, which I really did. But if we have learned anything about me on this channel, I have nothing but the audacity. To say my PC building journey was a struggle would be an understatement. Like, it was really difficult for me. And you'll see why shortly. It's not my own fault, it's just like quality assurance fault. Day 1 was a really solid start, so we can start there. So for day 1 of building, what I ended up accomplishing was getting most of the parts onto the motherboard and ensuring that the PC could boot. Alright, pause. I know what you're wondering. What is this video without a building montage where I skim over the specs? So starting off with the motherboard, we have an Asus B650E Max Gaming with Wi-Fi. So far it's a great pick, but I was kinda annoyed that it only came with one heatsink, so I had to purchase a second external heatsink for my second SSD. For the CPU, we have an AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D, which is cooled with the Thermalright AXP 120 low-profile cooler. I went with this one because it was supposed to have clearance while utilizing the 5¼ bay. Unfortunately, they incorrectly estimated that size requirement by about 3mm because I cannot currently install my disk drive with these strange metal prongs sticking out of the bracket. For RAM, I started with the Team Group T-Create, but after 2 faulty sets, I landed on a generic one from Micro Center. The power supply I chose was the Corsair RM850X. Initially, I was going to get the 750E, but for such a small price difference, the upgrade was definitely worth it. For storage, I have a generic inland 512GB SSD for a boot drive and a 2TB Samsung 990 Pro for storing my games. The graphics card is a 5070 Ti, but more on that later. And then the scary part came. So obviously, since I built outside of the case first, I had to short the power button with a screwdriver to turn it on. And I was so convinced, for whatever reason, I was so convinced that if I touched the metal with a screwdriver, I was just gonna like go flying from an electrical explosion. But that wasn't the case. I had a functioning PC, sort of. After I completed that, I started to prepare the case a little bit with adding some fans in and stuff, and now would be a good time to tell you how I'm cooling the case. The fans that I have are all Thermalright. They're either 80mm or 120mm. They're set up in exactly the configurations shown on the screen. Shout out to the person on Reddit who posted this fan setup because this is exactly the configuration I followed. On day 2, my task was to get the PC in the case. Now that I knew the parts worked, I had to get the parts into the case. So this is the part where I'm gonna remind you guys that the case that I chose is really hard for beginners, and there's really strict sizing requirements for all of the parts you want to put in it. Basically, I had found out that the GPU wasn't going to fit. The maximum length that a GPU can be to fit in this case is 309 millimeters. The graphics card that I got was the Zotac Gaming GeForce RTX 5070 Ti in 16 gigabytes, and this graphics card is only 304 millimeters, so it really should have fit. Knowing just how meticulously I planned this build, I knew that I couldn't have messed up on the size requirements. After a little bit more fussing and fidgeting, I finally figured out what the problem was. I needed to reseat the motherboard again. Basically, it was just slightly off. The standoffs just didn't line up perfectly, and even though I screwed it in and it felt like everything was in right and secure, I don't know. Once I had the graphics card in, all that was left to do was start plugging everything in. Since this case is closed, it doesn't really matter what the cable management looks like per se, just as long as they're not touching anything or touching any fans. So the cable management, I did the best I could. Since this case is horizontal, there's no like back panel where you can hide cables in, because the back panel, that's just the bottom. Like the motherboard sits on the bottom, so there's nowhere to put cables behind that. Once I had successfully installed everything, I closed the case, I raced back to my office, and I plugged it in, and I turned it on. Here's where we run into trouble. I tried to install Windows and got a blue screen of death over and over again. What I ultimately ended up having to do was bring my PC to Micro Center. And before you say, oh, you could have done this, you could have done... No, trust me, love, I did. I did everything I could on my own with the resources I had available to me. I actually did have to bring it into the shop, unfortunately. Guess what was wrong with it, guys? If you've ever built a PC, I bet you can guess. It was the RAM. The RAM that I both reseated and replaced before they did any work on it at Micro Center. Okay, I have to interject to clarify one weird part of this story that I left out. So basically, when I got to Micro Center with my PC, I had already reseated the RAM but not replaced it. And the guy at the help counter was trying to be a homie, so since my RAM was still under warranty, he was like, I can give you a screwdriver and you can try swapping it out here. So I did that. Because I had a lot of hope in that moment that I wasn't gonna have to leave my PC to get diagnosed. Then when we tried turning it on again, it wouldn't even boot to BIOS, so I had to check it in. I still don't understand why Windows wouldn't install the first time, so that will forever be a mystery. Oh well, I guess. Micro Center got $200 from me, and I got a clean Windows install? Alright guys, so this is it. This is what my little gaming PC corner looks like. Just gotta flex all this art really quick. But yeah, this is what my PC setup looks like. It's a little cleaner than usual, but let's just talk about the peripherals a little bit. So as you can see, I have a mix of modern and retro peripherals. Some of this stuff was repurposed from my laptop setup. So for example, the keyboard is a Razer keyboard that I've had since 2021. You can't switch out the switches on it, but I've customized like the keycaps and everything. And I even made this one little keycap myself. There's also this mouse, which was the cheapest Logitech mouse in the color white that I could find whenever my Razer one died. The microphone is a HyperX Quadcast. I used to have three different blue microphones. I had the Blue Snowball, the Blue Yeti Nano, and then the Blue Yeti. I have to say, out of all those, my favorite was the Blue Yeti Nano, but the HyperX Quadcast is a good microphone. So all three of those were repurposed from my last setup. As you can see, I also have a really old looking pair of speakers sitting on my desk. So these speakers came from my parents' basement. They were actually from my family computer growing up. I had initially tried out 2 other pairs of speakers, but neither of them ended up working. So this is what I've got. Then I have this Xbox controller. Not really much to say about it. It's the only Xbox controller I have. I have this D-Boom speaker that you can display little pixel art designs on, but it doesn't have really great battery life, so most of the time it's off. Inside these cassette tape cases, there are USB drives with indie games on them. I also just have these random figures on my desk. It's a armadillo, Littlest Pet Shop, Melina, a cat playing guitar on a log, the businessman from The Little Prince, and a Tamagotchi. For anyone who's nosy about what people download onto their computer, this is kind of like all the games and stuff that I've downloaded so far, so definitely some revisits, some that I need to finish, and some new stuff. Not pictured here that I've been playing is Dead Island 2, that game is so freaking fun. Skate, I've been playing a little bit, trying it out. Peak, trying it out as well. The Anno demo, hell yeah. I need to finish Elden Ring and Persona 3. I'm so happy that I can have this many games on my computer at once. On my laptop, I had literally 1/5 of the amount of storage space that I currently have, so we're absolutely balling. Also, in this corner by the window, I do have some stuffed animals right now, but this is kind of just for the video. Usually in this corner right here, I have a laptop which also plugs into the blue monitor, and I work from home from this desk as well. Just to go over some of the resources that I used when learning about PC parts, trying to build a PC, etc., etc. From YouTube, PG Tech and Linus Tech Tips are like, they're the classics, okay? You know them, you love them. To be more specific, they were really good teachers in understanding the general process of building a PC, as well as like, what do parts do and how do I put them together? I also used a couple of different subreddits, basically just to ask people questions and be like, hey, I need help a little bit. Well, that's the video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this PC setup tour and hearing about my PC build journey. It was a really rewarding experience to build my first PC, so I hope that you either learned something, learned from my mistakes, or just found something interesting. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel, and let me know if you've ever built a PC. What was that like for you? Also, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up because it helps me out a lot, and I hope to see you in the next one.